all of you for taking the time to be here this afternoon for our last lunch and learn of the fall semester. Oh my gosh, I don't know about all of you, but I don't know how it's already December and the semester has just completely flown by. So my name is Lauren Grenice. I'm a career coach in the Career Enrichment Network. And I just wanna, again, thank you all for being here today and thank our panelists. Today, we're going to be featuring an internship panel comprised of 4 of our outstanding students who have a lot of experience with the internship search, with internships in general, and advice to pass on to all of you. Before I introduce them though, I wanna review a few resources from our office, the Career Enrichment Network, and what we have to offer. So up on the screen right now, you'll just see a couple of slides. You can scan any of these QR codes as they're going through. If you're watching this later on, feel free to scan them on our watching them on YouTube. We highly recommend you all logging into Nittany Lion Careers and checking out all of the resources on there as well as following us on our social media channels, just because we have a lot of really great resource announcements, job announcements that we put up, different networking opportunities that we promote through all of those means. Okay, so with that, I'm going to stop my screen share and stop my slideshow. And so as a friendly reminder to everyone here, the meeting will be recorded. This webinar is currently being recorded. In addition, I will be starting off by asking all of our panelists questions, but for those of you who are in the audience right now, please ask questions. We have 4 people here, 4 students here who have gone through the internship search, some of them multiple searches with both positive and not so positive experiences, and they are here to tell you all about it. So please, I highly encourage you to ask questions. You can do so by submitting them through the Q&A or the chat, and I'll be monitoring it throughout the panel. Okay, so to begin, I'm just going to start by welcoming our panelists. So first we have Hannah Schultz. She is a senior majoring in international politics and global and international studies with a minor in Russian. Currently, she is serving as an intern for the U.S. Department of State in the Bureau of Democracy, Human Rights, and Labor's Office of Europe. Over the summer, she attended Middlebury College of Russian for an 8-week intensive Russian immersion program. When she's not working remotely remotely from Petit Library, Hannah is an involved member of the Penn State International Affairs and Debate Association and a member of the Pi Sigma Alpha and Pi Beta Kappa Honor Societies. In her free time, she likes to read science fiction, go hiking, and write pen pal letters to friends. So welcome, Hannah. Next, we have Gwen Bowe. Gwen is a 3rd-year student majoring in criminology and minoring in security risk analysis. Over the past 2 summers, she has applied to and obtained several law enforcement internships, including the FBI Honors Internship and an internship with the Montgomery County Police Department in Maryland. Despite the obstacles introduced by COVID-19, she was able to gain experience working on cold cases for the MCPD and learn more about her chosen field. So welcome, Gwen. Next, we have Daryl Bachrins, who is a 7th semester student at Penn State from Irvine, California, pursuing a degree in economics and a minor in security risk analysis. In his sophomore and junior year summers, Daryl interned at Domino's Pizza Incorporated as an IT finance and supply chain finance intern, respectively, and will be joining BDO USA LLP as a transfer pricing associate after graduation. In his free time, Daryl enjoys playing soccer and traveling to his favorite spots around the country, as well as exploring new places around the world. So welcome, Daryl. And last but not least, we have Julia Montevecki. So Julia is a senior double major in Crim and Italian language. Julia hopes to use her education and life experiences to become a counselor for adolescents impacted by the criminal justice system. On top of being a resident assistant, Julia has taken up 2 internships during her college career, both in child welfare, one at Lackawanna County's Office of Children and Youth, and Center County's Youth Services Bureau. She believes these experiences have helped in achieving her goals. So with that, again, welcome panelists. I'm so excited to get started. I will kick us off by asking you all what advice you have for current students searching for an internship. So if you don't mind, I'll just start at the beginning. So Hannah, if you want to get started.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, and hi, everybody. So I would say that, at least speaking from the point of view of someone who applies to a lot of federal jobs and a lot of public service jobs, make it part of your routine, applying to internships and looking for them. Don't just set aside a 7-hour window on a Saturday to try and do it all at once, because in my field, at least, jobs open up completely at random and all the time. So unless you're applying to a program, like I applied to the Unpaid Student Internship Program, which for the State Department is a general application for every job they offer. You get to pick 3 offices and that's your application. But if you're looking to be a Pathways intern, which is a sort of gateway program into a career at the State Department, where they only assign internships for people who there is actually a job position waiting for you at the end of it. Those open constantly, and they're only open for incredibly short windows. So I would turn on notifications on the websites that you use. So if you're on LinkedIn and you have keywords, turn on notifications for that. If you use Nittany Lion Careers, have your keyword notifications turned on for that too. And if you see something pop up and you already have all your paperwork loaded into the application, hit apply on everything. So that way you don't have to feel like, oh, you get a notification for a job, you go, I'll apply later. But most of these positions open and close very, very fast. So if you make it part of kind of like your daily or weekly routine where you're just like, oh, I have 30 minutes between these classes, and you flip open LinkedIn and there's like 4 or 5 positions that have popped up that are new, and you just hit apply, and then maybe tab ones that want a statement of purpose that you can write later that day. Then you're constantly putting yourself out there, and also not putting the pressure on yourself at the last minute to just apply to 12 things, and it's stressful and it's just overwhelming. That's at least been my experience, because I've done it both ways. And let me tell you that stressful 12-hour binge application to 30 things is no fun. And honestly, I've had better results with doing it over time. So
Thanks so much, Hannah. Gwen, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so kind of just building off of that, I think that's really great advice to kind of stay current with all of your resume and just kind of what's going on, what the options are on Nittany Lion Careers, or if you see like this panel was sent out in an email, if you see an email like that, just to take advantage of every opportunity that comes your way. And you can always decide later on that, oh, you know what, actually this isn't what I thought it was, so I'm just gonna kind of discard that. But yeah, so just kind of staying current with your own profile, your resume, maybe cover letter skills, stuff like that. That really helps, so that on a moment's notice, like Hannah was talking about, you can kind of shift and tailor it towards whatever internship might pop up at a last second. One thing that I definitely wish I knew when I was a first year student is you should just take people up on every offer that they give you. Because I have a family friend. One of the ways I got my most recent internship was that family friend. And he was helping me to apply. He's as a detective, he was helping me to apply to the FBI. And he kept offering to connect me with people to help the process go smoother. And I think I was just no, I'll just go through this, the application process like every other person. I felt kind of weird taking him up on that offer for that leg up. And I think looking back at it, it would have been a lot easier if I had kind of an established networking connection, which I know I think those are in questions later on as well. But so just when people come to you, especially with the mentor program, or if you have a professor who knows people who are in higher places and they're willing to help you or talk to you or something like that, always take them up on that offer, because you never know where that's going to lead. And it might not lead to anything, but at least that you have that door open to you, when you'll get towards it, and it might help you find an internship you never knew existed. So that kind of helped me kind of talking to different people kind of helped me search for internships that I didn't even know existed.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gwen. Daryl, I will pick on you next.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having all of us and organizing this, by the way. But, you know, I think it comes down for me, at least, to four really manageable steps. The first one, make an appointment with your career advisor, because that would go a long way. Just have a conversation with them, tell them what your interests are, and they'll definitely point you in the right direction. I think Penn State is great into providing resources, into helping students figure out what it is they want to do. And so make a quick 20-30-minute appointment. That'll go a long way. Number two, make a good resume. And you can also do this with your career advisor, as well as there's resources here at Penn State that you can go to. And I know that sounds really cliche, but just hop on the website, make a quick appointment, and I promise you, you'll be super happy you did. So make that appointment, make a good resume, and start applying to jobs. Go on LinkedIn, go to the companies that you want. They have different job postings at seasonal times throughout the year. And so keep an eye out for those. And when you do apply, the last step would be to go on LinkedIn and actually try to connect with as many people as possible within the company. So let's say you want to apply to company X, go to LinkedIn, go to company X, filter to find Penn State alumni, and just send them a quick message saying, hey, my name is so-and-so. I would love to chat with you about the position, about the company, and, you know, blast it to like 50, 60 different people. And you'll end up finding somebody who's willing to connect with you and give you insight into the process, into the job application and the company itself. So I think that if you make an appointment with the career advisors here at Penn State, make a really good resume, apply to the jobs, and connect with people at the company, it'll definitely go a long way.
Great. Thank you so much, Daryl. Yeah, and we'll get into networking in just a second. But Julia, would you mind telling us a little bit about what advice you have for current students searching for an internship?
Yes, hello. So I've found my 2 internships. I do love the College of Criminology and Sociology, but one downfall is that a lot of the internships they put out are targeted for law enforcement or research. And as somebody going into social work, it was extremely difficult to find the internships that I ended up applying to. So my advice is to just look absolutely everywhere. Nittany Lion Careers, Indeed, like jobs.com, LinkedIn. I sent emails to just agencies in my town asking, like, even if the website didn't say they had internships, I was like, hi, can I please just like work here like for free? I promise I'll be like a good worker. Asking professors if they know internships that past students did, asking professors if they know any agencies for the field that I'm looking for. Just keep looking everywhere. And like, I found mine like basically under a rock. There's like no advertising for it, but I love it. So just keep looking and keep your head up.
Awesome. Yeah, absolutely. Persistence is definitely key and something I feel like I've heard from every one of our panelists so far. So I know that each of you touched on this a little bit, especially Gwen and Daryl, but could you all talk a little bit about networking, its importance within your internship search, if it was important, and how you have gone about building your career support network?
Yeah, I can hop in on this one. Yeah, so I feel like at this point, I've talked to everybody on the face of the earth that is in any position related to like the specific areas of law enforcement that I want to go into. And I feel like, you know, it's really hard to keep track of everybody. It's something that I struggle with. I have like, I know there are resources. So like, again, plugging the Career Enrichment Network, but like Lauren has sent me some resources to kind of keep that organized, like spreadsheet stuff, like just kind of keeping it so that every time you talk to somebody, you can kind of take notes and, you know, and like kind of write when the last time you talked to them was, what they helped you with. So you can do follow-up emails, stuff like that. So that's a really helpful resource that I definitely use. But before I like knew about that, I was just kind of talking to anybody and everybody. And I would say that networking is definitely like one of the larger, like more important things that you should be doing, just because even if people that you're talking to, you're not looking for a job from, or they're not offering you a job, it's still like really, really helpful for you to figure out what you want to do, to be able to talk to people who have actually taken their college experience and taken it into the field that you want. And so just kind of like we're doing now, we're reflecting on our past internship struggles, like they'll reflect back on their past professional struggles and be able to tell you about those as well. But yeah, so I would say how I built my network. I just kind of like, I did the alumni mentor program. That was I would say the beginning of the network. So I was matched with a mentor, and then she kind of introduced me to a couple other people that I could talk to. And then just kind of like my family friends who knew things about it, or like my neighbors, like literally I talked to anybody and everybody about what I'm interested in and what I'm doing, especially like those questions like, oh, what are you doing in college? Like, what are you studying? And that kind of like leads to that pathway. Going to events that have networking opportunities, joining clubs that might have networking opportunities for your specific major, like all of those are ways that you can meet people. And then once you meet people, it's all about like your specific network. If you want to continue a relationship with them, just keeping their information, keeping in contact with them, sending them an occasional email or an update or question so that you're fresh in their mind as well.
Thank you so much, Gwen. Would anybody like to add on?
I'm just gonna double recommend the alumni mentor program, because it's, first of all, it's very easy to apply and it can't hurt to apply. And second of all, my mentor was really big to me and important to me, especially during the pandemic, because when the pandemic hit, it was only a few months before my first State Department internship was supposed to happen, which obviously did not. And he sort of was a really good insider support for my field, because he had worked at State for 25 years, and then he worked at think tanks in New York and DC, and then he worked in academia, and then so he essentially worked in every kind of career someone with my interests and majors could have. But his inside eye into what's just the very, very simple things but the public don't know, quelled my fears and helped me be ready for when I would be reapplying to try to get in. So something that a lot of people don't know that is really difficult about applying to the State Department is because they go on random unannounced hiring freezes that can last for up to 2 years. They're not public. It's just sort of a thing that happens when there's a change in administration, or if they just don't need people. So he essentially read the writing on the wall for me and went, okay, there's been an administration change. I'm going to say, give it 6 months. And then when 6 months passed, he said, nah, give it till fall. And look at me, I got a fall internship. He could read it. He could tell exactly when they were going to want people. So I applied to a summer internship and I didn't get it. He's like, yeah, it's because half the offices are empty. Don't worry about it. Apply to fall. So I did. And the offices are filled and they needed interns. So just having somebody with that inside eye into the industry or the field that you're going into can quell your fears, answer your questions, and it is so helpful. I cannot recommend applying to that program enough. Please do it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. And I've been popping links in the chat as we're going along with some of the different resources that our panelists have been mentioning. So feel free to take a look. But Julia, Daryl, do either of you want to add on to networking, anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I should have prefaced this a little bit. My career trajectory isn't with the federal government or any sort of government institution.
That's okay. That's good.
No, definitely. I'm more towards the private sector side, so my advice might be a little bit different. But I definitely want to echo what Gwen said. Joining clubs and organizations is massive. Being able to be exposed to a group of individuals that are older than you and more senior than you, who have had previous internship experiences at companies that you're interested in, is definitely big. Like, I joined an organization, and a lot of my senior, students have been interns at JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, things like that. And they were able to send me a email to, for example, their hiring manager or their recruiter or human resources representative and things like that. So being able to be exposed to a group of students who have been at the companies that you're in is great. And I think the best way to do that is being in a club and organization that matches your interests. And for me personally, I think going on LinkedIn and cold calling people at the companies that you want, giving them a quick blurb about who you are, that you go to Penn State and things like that goes a long way, because more often than not, if you connect with a fellow Penn Stater at the company that you're interested in, they're more than happy to talk to you and give you great insight into the hiring process at the company that you want. So yeah.
Great, thanks so much, Daryl. Julia?
Yeah, so a lot has been said so far. I would just like reiterate how important your professors can be as part of your circle, your network. Even if you don't have specific things to talk to your professor about, like usually you go to office hours because you have questions, it's good just to connect with them and try and get to know them and let them know that you're serious about what they're talking about, that you're interested in what their passions are, and to keep them as somebody that's kind of on your side and is supporting you even outside of internships. I mean, those kinds of connections can build into recommendation letters, or you can end up like TAing, and small opportunities like that really go a long way throughout the rest of your college career. Absolutely. Thanks so much for making that point, Julia. Absolutely, connecting with faculty members can lead to further insight. So a lot of really good advice so far. I just want to take a quick moment and encourage all of the attendees. If you have any questions, as a reminder, please feel free to put them in the chat, but I'll keep going with the questions that I have. So the next one for our panel is, how do you keep yourself organized during your search, and where did you search for an internship?
I'll go.
I guess, oh, okay,
Oh,
sorry.
No, you can go, you can go.
Yes, for my internship search, like I said, I used almost every website I could find. So I had quite a bit of messages coming into my email. So I actually made a separate email just for my job applications that I could check when I was ready to look at those things. And that kept me really organized, kept me from not missing any important opportunities that were coming up. So I definitely recommend that. And like I said before, just find businesses, agencies that you're interested in, and just email them, or like Daryl said, just cold call them, and you'll be surprised how many people will actually get back to you. And definitely make sure you're keeping that organized, save numbers. Yeah, but I do recommend having a separate email.
That's such a good suggestion, Julia. I think that it's a really simple way to keep everything nice and neat and organized with a professional email address. So thank you for that. Daryl, I want to go back to you because I know that you had something to say too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And if you go the private sector route, I think most of the recruiting is done towards the first semester of the year, throughout the fall semester. And I think that being able to keep up to date with any recruiting events that are on campus here at Penn State is key, because if you go to Nittany Lion Careers, you'll definitely be able to find a bunch of events that are going to be happening here throughout campus. Like companies will be joining the business building, the College of Liberal Arts building, and things like that, just to have networking sessions. And by putting in that face-to-face time, you're actually going to put your leg in the door, because that resume that you're going to give to the person who's there on campus is the resume that they will pick out of the pile and most likely interview, as long as your resume is good and things like that. But when it comes to being organized, after you make all these connections and face-to-face interactions with the recruiters, have like a file on your computer filled with a custom tailored resume for each company, cover letter for each company, and kind of organize it for all the companies that you're applying to. So for example, I applied to 25 different companies, right? Have a different file box for each company that contains its own specific cover letter, resume, and any relevant documents, just so you can kind of go back and refer to these documentations that you're going to need when it comes to follow-up interviews and calls and things like that. So I think that would definitely go a long way.
That's great. Thank you so much, Daryl. Hannah, Gwen?
I'm more simple. I use Google Docs, but it's one thing I wanted to note, like so many good ideas so far, Julia. I'm stealing the separate email thing for my rapidly approaching job search. Keep track of everything you've applied to. This applies more to, I guess, fields where you can apply more easily. So in sort of IR, there's a ton of fellowships that are like 200-hour applications. And then there's 1,000 jobs that are apply, and that's it. You're just sending it the same federal resume that is in a standardized web format from USA Jobs to people, because that's just the way that federal work works. So just like copy paste the title of everything you apply to into a document, keep track of what you're applying to, not just so that you can know what you're actually doing, but sometimes you can reach out. Maybe if you're a sophomore and you already applied to something, you can talk about it with the person, be like, yeah, I've applied multiple years to this position. I'm really interested in it. You want to remember that where you've applied. And it also provides you with just a nice resource, and I think a little encouragement to see how much applying you've done and be like, oh, look at all these neat jobs. You also might catch a trend that you haven't even noticed in yourself for what you're looking for. A lot of the times, like, we don't know what we're looking for until we see it. So if you go into your folder and you're like, man, there's a lot of civil service officer jobs in here, and I didn't even realize that was really what I wanted to do, then all of a sudden you have an official name for what it is you're looking for, and that makes it even easier to find more of them. So that is my very brief advice for keeping track of everything.
Great. Gwen?
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. You guys all have really great advice on this. I'm definitely somebody who has, like, I'm organized in the sense of, like, I don't lose anything, but I also kind of have, like, I think if anybody else who was like more neat looked at my folders, they'd be like, what is going on? And so it's like, it's my own, like, it's organized for my brain, which I think is important too. Like, you don't, like, all the suggestions that everybody has given are great, but you also have to figure out like what works for you. And if that doesn't work for you, if you create another email and apply to all these jobs and then never check that email, that's not going to be a good idea. But if it works for you, that's great. You just got to kind of tailor yourself, like, to what you know, like, will keep you accountable. And for me, that's just having one mainstream email that I check constantly. And then also having like a folder with a whole bunch of mini folders, kind of like what Daryl talked about, where you just have everything is individualized for each job. You tailor your resume to each different thing. If, you know, I always download like the final copy of applications if they're online, so just so I have like a kind of a receipt that, yes, I submitted it, this is what I submitted. If I need to look back on it at all to see what I signed or whatever, that's all in those folders as well. But that's, yeah, it's very simple. It's just like a folder on my computer, but just figuring out what works for you. And it takes a couple times and a couple tries and maybe a couple like panicked, like, I don't know where I put this, to kind of figure out what is best for you. And that's kind of part of this whole process as well.
Great, thanks so much. Thank you all. Those were really great tactics and information about how you guys all personally did your search. So my next question is, I know that we've been talking about a lot of different types of resources that you've all been using, but I'm wondering if there is a specific resource that you have used during your internship search that you would recommend to current students who are also searching for an internship. So what resources are available? Which one in particular would you recommend?
I'll go. Your career advisor. I can't stress this enough, because I think your career advisor is a fantastic resource to help you build your resume, find the jobs that you want, kind of give you mock interviews and tips and tricks into the job application process. And I think, you know, to be frank, it's super accessible. They're there for a reason. All you have to do is email them, go on Nittany Line Careers, and kind of drive the conversation. Be like, hey, I want to apply to this job because this is my goal and I want to achieve it by X date. They'll be a fantastic resource for you. So if you haven't met a career advisor yet here at Penn State, I highly recommend that you do, and you'll be surprised at how great it'll be. So yeah.
Yeah, I kind of want to echo what he's saying as well, because like a lot of my, like back to the networking question, like a lot of my network was also built through Lauren and like through her office. She introduced me to a lot of people in the FBI, in Homeland Security, in legal offices around the state. It's just like, or like I'll tell her about experience and she'll respond with another student's experience that can kind of help me tailor, like maybe like figure out, oh yeah, I should look at this agency, or I should talk to these people, or let me email that contact. So yeah, what Daryl's saying is very true. The Career Enrichment Network and the counselors that are there for you have honestly been more helpful to me than my actual academic advisor. I think I didn't realize there were so many different advisors when I came to Penn State, but like this is definitely like, if you had to only have one, like this is the advisor I would recommend.
Thanks so much to you both. As a career coach, please come and see me. I would love to meet with all of you. Nittany Line Careers, I put that link in the chat for you all. You can make an appointment through there. And if you have any questions, you can email us directly. So Hannah, Julia, do you have anything that you would like to add? Favorite resource or resource that you feel like has really helped you out?
I feel like I already said all mine in other questions, sort of inadvertently, but yes. And I just want to echo the career advisor is extremely helpful. And sometimes you just need to pull the Band-Aid off, and they're so good with that. Like just to go and be like, this is what I want. And they give you resources and just have a conversation. And it's really helpful to get, if you're just starting your internship search and you're anxious about it, or you're in the middle of it and you're still anxious about it, it can be really helpful just to like ground you. And, you know, you're not just sitting in front of your computer applying endlessly with no human help. It's really nice to have like a real person to talk to about it.
Yeah, I don't think I have too much to add. Everybody said really great things. For me, it was Katie Wysocki, who is another advisor. I work with her as in my position as an RA, and I doubt any of the participants are freshmen. But if you know somebody applying to Penn State, I would recommend telling them about the liberal arts SLO, and we do a lot of professional and academic development for freshmen in liberal arts. So internship panels and like searches is something that we do together, helping freshmen, which in turn helped me learn more about the resources at Penn State. So I would recommend it, but I doubt any of you can apply to that now.
Thanks so much for mentioning that, Julia. Especially, and I think that this comes back, I forget which one of you, probably a couple of you have mentioned the importance of those professional student organizations too. So like anywhere you can kind of find your niche, and which will kind of expose you to some of those different career paths for liberal arts students is always really good, including the SLO. So that's awesome. So kind of moving on, and this connects to how you all feel about being liberal arts students in general. I'm wondering how you share your liberal arts skills during an interview, and any advice you have for the interview process.
I think that liberal arts education is very application based, and that helps a lot in an interview. It's less so like a list of concrete skills, like say computer programs that you're like comfortable with / know how to use. And it's more generalized skills and capacity, which means that in interviews, you can really make an argument that your skill set matches what they're asking for. So when I interviewed for the internship that I have now, one of the questions that I was asked was, at State, everything is extremely fast paced, which is very true. Most of my deadlines are less than 48 hours from when I'm assigned them. I'm assigned them all the time. And she wanted to know if I was familiar with concise, precise, and quickly produced writing. Now, I know that liberal arts isn't the most well known for being concise. How many of us have written an extremely long-winded paper about a very specific topic? But that doesn't mean that we can't be concise. I actually took a class called Psychology of Terrorism, where the professor had worked in Narcos and was like, listen, they give you 1 minute to explain what's happening when they bring you into these meetings working at the federal government. So he taught us to write that way. And I brought it up in my interview. I was like, not like, while I have a lot of familiarity with academic writing, which is a huge part of liberal arts, I'm also very familiar with brief writing, which is a skill I was taught in this course. And I'm capable of utilizing both kinds of writing for whatever it's necessary in the job, but I'm completely comfortable with writing concise papers about really complex topics. And she was impressed by that, because in the collegiate bubble, a lot of us are really only familiar with sort of an academic writing that allows for superfluous words and really long paragraphs. But if you can make an argument based on your very varied liberal arts education for anything, then you'll be golden in your interview. Just be really familiar with the skills you feel you're best at, / the skills that have been most emphasized in your degree programs, and maybe make like a really short list of different ways they could be utilized. So if it was writing, it could be, like I said, academic writing or research writing, which is very different than academic writing, or brief writing, which is the writing I use at my internship. But you're capable of doing all of those things. You just have to kind of know how to pitch them. That's one of the really good things about a liberal arts education, is you can really flex to what your interviewer wants to hear from you and to what your job needs from you. So that's at least my experience with it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Hannah. I'm curious, Daryl, as someone who's outside of like the government entities, do you have any suggestions about how you share your skills as a liberal arts students during an interview?
Yeah, no, definitely. And to be honest, I'm kind of struggling with the question because I think every academic program at Penn State is fantastic. But I think for liberal arts specifically, they definitely give you, you're absolutely right, a more application-based kind of skill set. So the skills that you learn in your classes, you have the ability to kind of apply that into the real world setting in a more, in a different fashion compared to different majors as well. But at the end of the day, I think that whatever education you do pursue here at Penn State, liberal arts included, the skills that you get are from fantastic professors and a great curriculum. So just be sure that you're passionate about whatever it is that you're studying. So if I study economics, make sure that I know everything there is to know about economics so that you can kind of show that to an interviewer and show why you're passionate about it. And if you're energetic, bubbly, passionate about whatever it is you're studying, then that'll come across to the interviewer and it'll show, hey, this person is definitely happy and interested to be applying for the job. I think that person would be a great candidate. But when it comes to advice about the interview, I think I'm gonna beat a dead horse here, but schedule an appointment with your career advisor. Again, mock interviews, schedule them as much as you can. Learn about the STAR method. Schedule an appointment with your career advisor to kind of like eliminate the filler words that you kind of have in your interviews, just so you can avoid the ums and the likes, to have a more cohesive vernacular during your interview process. And yeah, that'll kind of go a long way. I know that didn't really answer your question, but being energetic about your topic and your field of study would definitely go a long way for me.
No, absolutely. I think that that's directly related because anytime you list something on your resume or say something in a cover letter or your application, it's fair game for them to ask you about that. So being able to elaborate on some of the different things that you've learned in class and apply them to the position that you're interviewing for that's what the interview is for, right? It's making that connection and making that argument. So thank you, Daryl. That was really good. And Hannah as well. Julia, Gwen, do you guys have anything that you would like to add?
But I'll go. I'd say for me, especially the field that I'm working in, human services, social work, it's really important to be empathetic, compassionate, kind of understanding. And those are things I think you learn with your liberal arts education. I would say a more STEM based, it's kind of technical, medical, a lot of memorization. Whereas in liberal arts, you really get to discuss your ideas and your opinions and really learn a lot about yourself and your strengths and your weaknesses in all your classes. So just, find your personality, and while you're in the internship or the interview process, don't lose it for the purpose of seeming professional. All the opportunities I got were mostly because people were like, oh, I like your personality and you seem like a good worker. So
yeah, I think kind of like going off of that a little bit, just like the way I think about liberal arts or the College of Liberal Arts is just that, like, while a lot of other college, and this is a generalization, so obviously there would be exceptions, but like at least for me, the College of Liberal Arts has definitely taught me material within my major, but the biggest thing that has taught me was like how to think and then how to communicate what I think. And so for me, like those two things can be applied in anything. They can go to federal jobs, the private sector, anything like that. I mean, honestly, I think it makes me a better human being in general outside of professional development, just because you're learning how to interact with other people and how to solve problems and all of these things, and you're not being told how to think. Like I think in a lot of like STEM fields, it's like there are rules and like laws of how like chemistry works or biology works or whatever, and in College of Liberal Arts, especially my major, there are really not that many rules. It's a lot of like thinking and acting and figuring out how to make like life better. And so I think that's something that I always talk about in my interviews. It's just like how the College of Liberal Arts has impacted those skills rather than like any specific material, because I mean, everybody's got a major, everybody's learning what's in their major, but like as a whole, like what that liberal arts education is giving you that might be different than other colleges. I usually go the route of like critical thinking and communication and group work and stuff like that.
That's great. And all of the different transferable skills that you guys have mentioned are what employers are looking for across different sectors. So thank you all. That's really good. So for those who have had a virtual experience, I'm wondering how you've navigated the experience, engaged with coworkers through technology, understood your position, organized your time. How was that for you, and how was the adjustment going through that virtualness of it?
So I had a brief internship with the Office of the Attorney General in Pittsburgh that was virtual. It was the summer of 2020, so everything was COVID. And my internship that I had planned for that summer had fallen through because of COVID, canceled it. And so I just kind of was like at the last minute scrambling for a virtual internship. And so I ended up getting it. And my biggest problem was with human resources. Lauren knows I have even in person, like I have not good luck with agency, and that might just be the government. But people who are in human resources are often not the people who you're actually working for, or even connected to the people you're working for. So it's kind of like you're always communicating through a middleman. And so my biggest struggle with the virtual internships is just like advocating for myself. And I think it was Julia who was saying it earlier about like knowing your self-worth as an intern and stuff like that. But I think that's really important, especially on the virtual setting, because it's really easy to get overlooked as a regular intern who's in person in the office. But to be an intern who was on a screen or person, or maybe even just via email, like that is like very easy during their busy lives and their busy work schedules to factor in. So don't be afraid to like blow up their emails or remind them, hey, you asked me to do this. This is something that I'm attending, or this is something that I've I've done and I've finished and I'm submitting to you. And sometimes it is just that they don't see the email. And that's unfortunately just how or they don't get the phone call in time or whatever. And that's just kind of the nature of virtual internships, unfortunately. And for other people, I'm sure it's better. But it's that's just something that I've run into, is just making sure that you are speaking up for yourself, because nobody else is going to speak up for you, or at least they might, but like you can't count on anybody 100% other than yourself. So that's my biggest advice for the virtual internships.
Absolutely agree with everything she just said. Self-advocate. I'm fortunate that in my office we have daily morning meetings. My team is about 12 people. Doesn't mean everybody's always there, but those meetings are really grounding for me because it gives me an opportunity to catch people, ask them things. And always, if I'm running, I'm unpaid. So a lot of the time, I know a lot of interns be like, well, they're not paying me. I'm not going to poke them for work. Please poke them for work. At the beginning, I kept reaching out and saying at the morning meetings, I'm only working on this one minor unclassified assignment right now. If anybody has anything else, let me know. And eventually me saying that and them being stressed out enough that they were like, oh my God, I have too much to do, resulted in me getting delineated responsibilities. And then because I had done those, I got to do bigger responsibilities. And because I did those, I have gotten to do some seriously insane and very cool stuff that I wish I could tell you guys about, but I can't. When I've spoken to my supervisor, she's like, yeah, we've actually never had an intern do that before, in person or otherwise. Because I was constantly insisting that I was ready to take on responsibilities. I got my assignments back fast, and people were like, ooh, this intern sits around and waits for us to give her stuff to do, and it comes back quickly. I like that. So that meant that I was trusted with projects that I would have been given silly Googling research projects the entire semester if I hadn't started poking a little harder and asking for other things. I would also say be flexible, like with online internships. I wanted so badly to put on my little suit and walk to my job, take the metro, and to just hit the 9 to 5, and then I get back on the metro and I go home, and I'm a routine person. COVID killed me because I love routines. However, if you make your own routine, but you're flexible within it, that is where you'll find your happy spot. So I spend usually 3 days a week at the library. It helps me focus. I never know what days those are going to be, though, because I might be doing something like this where I need to stay home and talk a lot. Or my supervisor might call me and be like, oh, tomorrow you're attending this 4-hour seminar on the Crimean troop buildup. And I'm like, okay. And so that means I'm at the library because I'm going to have to focus on a 4-hour seminar where I'm not talking. And having a little schedule for yourself, but also being flexible to it changing is really helpful to keeping yourself on track, but also not stressing yourself out like, oh my God, I just walked all the way to campus to focus and my supervisor's calling me and they need me to get on call in 10 minutes and I need to get home and there's no Wi-Fi and if you create a schedule for yourself, but allow it to be bent pretty severely, you will be very happy with your position. And one final thing, say yes to everything. If somebody asks to give you something, say, yeah, I can do it, even if you don't think you can. Because the worst that happens is you email them and say, hey, here's what I have so far. I'm looking for some guidance. And they will take that as you're invested. And also that you're willing to try something that you're not so sure you can do. Half the stuff at my internship, I was like, oh my God. And then it was over and they were like, great job. And now that was on my list of things that I'm capable of. So say yes to everything, especially for virtual interns. Opportunities are a little smaller, so don't be afraid to take on things that might seem scary at the time. That was very long. I'm so sorry, but I hope it was helpful.
No, that was really great, Hannah. Thank you both you and Gwen. Take those opportunities as they come. Julia and Daryl, I'm not sure. I forget if your internships were in person or virtual, but if for either one, do you both have any advice on how to best navigate that internship space, especially if it was maybe in person and different from Gwen and Hannah's experiences?
Yeah, no, my first one was a hybrid, like a few days at home, a few days in the office, but I think no matter where you're going, I think the future is going to have some sort of hybrid work environment, right? You're going to have teams via Microsoft Teams and WebEx and things like that, and you're going to have some people in the office. And I think we're just going to have to come to terms with that. And so with that, I think having a virtual work environment is definitely a good thing. There's a lot of benefits to it, right? And so if you become a virtual intern at some point in the future, you're going to be able to clearly see the organization and the people within that organization and see who they report to, what department they're in, what business line they're in, along with their contact information. So if you work in a certain department and you want to see who works in a different department that you want to work in, you can pull up Teams, you can see Microsoft Outlook and things like that, because the company would provide all these different platforms for you to be able to see who works in what area, and kind of just leverage that. If you see a person in, for example, supply chain, and you want to learn more about supply chain, send them an email, and you can easily learn that via a virtual internship, because you'll have the tools and technology to be able to see the different business areas. But also, I think that it's also a little bit of a blessing to be in a virtual environment, because with a virtual environment, you kind of, as much as I hate to say, you don't have to have your camera on all the time, right? And so you can kind of be a little bit more of a mess, as opposed to if you were in person at the office. And so you can kind of use that to your advantage. If you have a deliverable due at 9 a.m, that 1 hour commute to the office, you would be able to spend at home in the morning working on that deliverable, putting on that finishing touches. So use that to your advantage. You're going to have a lot more time on your hands than you think. And so just be happy and look at the benefits of having a virtual internship if you do end up getting a virtual one instead.
Thank you so much, Daryl. Julia, I don't know if you have anything that you'd like to add about your own experience.
So I'm not sure what my first internship was. It was supposed to be in person, and then I was required to go in person, but nobody else was in the office. They were all virtual. Not a great internship. I'll answer any questions about that. But for me, just navigating the technology was a little more difficult. They were using programs that I've never used before, not just like regular Zoom. Had to figure out how to use Microsoft Teams, which is very complicated. I don't know why it's that complicated. And because I'm younger, they kind of thought that I should just be able to do everything and that I could show them how to do things. So I'd recommend just kind of playing around with Teams, Outlook, even Zoom, those kinds of like scheduling programs that some of your internships might be using, so you can familiarize yourself with the program. Yeah, so I'm not really sure if it was virtual, but there was a lot of meetings that I had to go into and learning how to use like a background and change my name, all those kinds of things. So really get yourself familiar with the technology if you're going to do a virtual internship.
Thank you. Absolutely. And I think that that's so interesting, Julia, that you pointed out that a lot of, we live in a world where there are 5 different generations in the workforce right now. And I mean, I know I'm a millennial, so similarly, I get asked questions a lot about technology and different things. So it's always good to take that time to familiarize yourself with the technology before you're going into these spaces, whether it's for the actual position or even before the interview, because you might not be familiar with the technology that they're using to interview you within that space. So thank you. For all of you, I mean, I know internships can be both paid and unpaid. So I'm wondering how you have budgeted for internships, and if you've had to find housing, how did that go? Or how did you pay for your expenses during that time? If you have any advice for, because even for those who may have had paid internships, right? Like it's not a full-time salary. So it's a lot to budget. So any suggestions on that?
Yeah, so none of the internships I've had have ever been paid, unfortunately. And so that's something that is hard to balance, because you as like a college student, I'm not earning really money by going to school. So I have to have like a job over the summers at the very least. So that is something that like I just happen to try to like find a flexible internship over the summers that like accounts for like understands that I am a college student and I will have to be working a little bit to make the money as well. And I was lucky that like my police department that I was working at was very flexible and worked more around me than I worked around them, I would say. And so I don't know that that's normal. I just got lucky with that. But as far as like, if that was not the case for me, something that I did apply for and that I just actually applied for again, because I'm going on a study abroad in the spring, is the career enrichment funds for the like your internships or whatever. I think the applications in like, and Lauren obviously knows all of that, but those applications for the summer internships usually go out in like the later side of the spring semester. And they ended up sending me $1,000 for the summer for me to work at a place that was just down the street from me, so I could live at home. That was something that I applied to jobs that were around my home, so I didn't have to pay for additional housing. And so I was able to live at home, eat at home, but I also had like around like $1,000 to buy new internship clothes because I had no business clothes whatsoever, and that is expensive. So like business clothes I had to buy, and like gas to and from my internship was also, gas prices are crazy, so that was helpful to have something there. If I went out with my supervisor to lunch, it helped cover that stuff. It helped cover the fact that I was spending time working on cold cases that I wasn't getting paid for working on. So that, all of that money, like, I don't know what the general award is, but I know that there's a lot of really generous donors who give their money to that, the career enrichment funds. And so if they can give you money, they will give you money. And it's really helpful as a college student who needs the money. So that's something that I definitely don't count on it, try to budget for without it, just in case it doesn't work out. But if it does work out, that's something that really, really helpful for me. And so definitely apply regardless of if you think you're going to get it or not.
Cannot stress that enough. I've applied to that fund multiple times for various unpaid / difficult to pay for experiences, I believe, including my time at Middlebury. It can't hurt to apply. The application is not complicated. It's very straightforward. And like Renelin said, if they can give you something, they will try so hard to find something for you. The money just sits if nobody takes it. So definitely apply to that, especially even if you are a paid intern, but let's say you're a paid intern in a city with super high cost of living like New York or DC, put that in your application. They'll ask you, how much money do you think you're going to need overall for housing? And you can be like, yeah, well, the rent in the city I'm living in, DC, is incredibly expensive. And in my opinion, I think it'll be $3,000 for just 3 months. I'm making that up. And then they'll try to find something for you. Definitely apply to that. And this is sort of just in a general sense. There's usually scholarship funds for each major. I know I'm the political science department. I know they have it. When that application gets sent out in the email blast, definitely apply to that too. Because even if you have your school paid for, or even if you just have minor school expenses, those scholarships can also be used towards that sort of thing. If you have some sort of internship expense. So definitely do that as well.
Julia, Daryl, anything to add about budgeting or being an intern or a college student with money?
Yeah, no, just super quickly. I think a lot of private sector jobs have paid internships. And if you apply to a position where you're far away from home, like if you live in the West Coast and you apply for an East Coast position, more often than not, you bring that up in your interview and they will most likely give you a housing stipend, at least in the private sector. So you have to be able to communicate to your talent acquisition representative and say, hey, I live far away from home. I need a housing stipend, and they have the budget and funds to do that. And again, in the private sector. When it comes to budgeting, there's a lot of resources on the internet. Like look up 50-30-20 rule, for example. There's a lot of articles and insights about how to budget your money, no matter what your compensation is. And I think just being able to read a couple of stuff on the internet and learn the tips and tricks into budgeting would definitely go a long way, and it'll help you establish an idea of how to budget moving forward in your life. So definitely Google those budgeting tips.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I know that we are at time. We're a minute over the panel. So I just want to thank Gwen, Hannah, Julia, Daryl. Thank you all so much for your expertise and all of the different pieces of advice and experiences that you've gone through that you were willing to share with us all today. For those in attendance, if you have any questions about what any of our panelists have talked about, please make an appointment with either me or another career coach in our office. We are more than happy to talk with you about any of the resources mentioned, any of the tips and tricks that they had talked about throughout our panel today. So with that, I will let you all go and prepare for whatever finals you have. Thank you all again so much for taking the time at the end of the semester, and I hope that you finish everything out strong.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. All right. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Lauren.